Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Leon Bryant, and the notification came at 6:47 a.m. while I was tying my work boots. My phone buzzed twice on the kitchen counter. I glanced over, expecting a schedule change from the plant or maybe a weather alert about a storm rolling off Lake Erie. Instead, I got a text from my wife that rewired my entire morning in one short burst of words. Plans changed. You're staying home. The kids want their biological father on the East Coast trip. Calvin is coming instead. I read it 3 times, eyes moving slowly over the same sentence, as if it would morph into something else on the 4th pass. Same words each time. No apology, no explanation, just a decision handed down like I was an employee being reassigned to a different shift. I set the phone back on the counter and stared at the coffee maker. The red light blinked steady and patient, the way it always did. My hands were calm. That surprised me. I poured coffee into my thermos, screwed the lid on, and sat down at the kitchen table. It was the same small table where we had planned this trip 6 months ago, where I had circled dates on a paper calendar and calculated costs with a dull pencil, where I had signed up for overtime shifts at the ceramics plant to cover the flights and hotels. I had just finished paying off the flights last week. Flights that apparently did not include me anymore. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. My wife, Carla, had left yesterday with her son Terrell and her daughter Mariah, headed to her sister's place in another part of Cleveland before their early morning departure the next day. They were going to spend 2 weeks touring museums in Boston, walking along the harbor, taking photos in front of old brick buildings in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., and eating at crowded cafes in New York City. I had been looking forward to it. Not anymore. I unlocked my phone and opened our bank app. The joint checking account showed the East Coast Fund nearly empty after the ticket purchases. 4 flights at just under $1,900 each, plus hotels and activities that would hit the card later. My savings account sat there with the emergency fund I had been building for 5 years. Untouched. Mine alone. I switched over to my email and pulled up the flight confirmations. All 4 tickets purchased on my credit card. My name on the billing line. Carla's name on the passenger list. Terrell's name. Mariah's name. And Calvin Price's name. Calvin, the biological father who had vanished before I ever met them and reappeared like a ghost who had suddenly remembered the address. I had never met Calvin. According to Carla, he had been gone since Terrell and Mariah were little. He had surfaced 6 months ago at Terrell's community college graduation, all smiles and backslaps, acting like he had been there the whole time. Carla had called it closure. I had called it something else in my head, too polite or too cowardly to say it out loud. I stood up and walked to the window. The parking lot below our building in Cleveland Heights was filling up with people heading to work. Neighbors in scrubs, steel-toed boots, uniforms, briefcases. Normal Tuesday morning. Everyone had somewhere to be. I had a ceramics workshop shift starting in 40 minutes. Industrial tile production. Steady pay. Nothing glamorous. I had taken that job 8 years ago when we needed reliable income, when Terrell and Mariah needed school supplies and winter coats, when Carla's old sedan needed a transmission and the rent had gone up the same month. I had told myself it was temporary back then. Temporary had turned into nearly a decade. I pulled my laptop from the sideboard and opened my bookmarks. I had been organized about finances ever since my father sat me down at the kitchen table when I was 16 and taught me how to keep records. Every payment, every receipt, every automatic withdrawal went into folders. There was one folder labeled Household Expenses. I click it open. 8 years of documentation filled the screen. Rent payments, all from my account. Utility bills, my name, my payments. Car insurance for Carla's vehicle, my card on file. The kids' phone plans, my account. Streaming services, subscription boxes, gym memberships I never used but she said she might get into. Every line item pointed back to one source. Me. I grabbed a legal pad and a pen from the counter drawer and started making a list, not because I was angry, at least that is what I told myself, but because I needed to see it written down. I needed to confirm what I already knew. By the time I finished, I had counted 42 recurring monthly expenses that I covered alone. 42. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Carla popped up. Don't be upset. Calvin wants to bond with his kids. You understand. I stared at the message. My thumb hovered over the screen. I typed out 5 different responses, each one sharper than the last, and deleted all of them. Finally, I just wrote back, "Have a good trip." I did not add anything else. No questions, no argument, just 4 words and a period. I called my supervisor at the plant and told him I needed the day off. "Family emergency," I said. He did not ask for details. I hung up and sat back down at the kitchen table with my laptop, my phone, and 8 years of digital paper laid out in front of me. I was not going to yell. I was not going to beg or send a long-winded text. I was going to do what I should have done the first time I felt like a wallet with legs instead of a partner. I was going to handle it the way you handle anything that has been built on the wrong foundation. Carefully, methodically, completely. By the time the coffee in my thermos had gone cold, I had already made the first 3 calls. I did not notice the taste. My voice stayed level, my breathing even. There was a strange kind of clarity in the way everything lined up once I decided I was done pretending. The first call was to the credit card company. I explained that I needed to remove an authorized user from my account. The representative asked, "Is there a problem with the cardholder relationship?" "No problem," I said, just simplifying things. For minutes later, Carla's access was gone. I thanked the representative and hung up. The second set of calls went to the streaming services: Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, the premium music family plan. I canceled each one while standing at the kitchen window, watching cars pull out of the parking lot. "May we ask why you're canceling today?" A cheerful voice from one company asked. "Just cutting back," I said. I repeated that line with each one. It was simpler than the truth. By call number 5, I had moved on to the phone plan. 3 lines under my name. Mine, Carla's, and Mariah's. The representative explained, "Sir, you could suspend the other 2 lines instead of canceling them if you would like. That way you can keep the numbers active." "No," I said. "Cancel them." "Just to confirm," he replied. "Canceling will disconnect service immediately for those 2 lines." "That is correct," I said. "Go ahead." I opened my list again, drew a line through phone plan, and kept going. Next was the car insurance on Carla's vehicle, the one I had been paying for since the transmission went out 3 years ago, and we decided it made more sense to repair than replace. I called the insurance agent directly. He knew me by name. "Leon, what is going on?" he asked. "Everything all right. I need to remove a vehicle from my policy," I said. "Sure thing," he replied. "Which one?" "The Toyota," I said. There was a pause on the line. "That is Carla's car, right?" he asked carefully. "You sure about this?" "Positive," I said. "She will need to get her own coverage if she wants to keep driving it." "All right," he said. "I will process it today and email you the confirmation." "I appreciate it," I replied, and hung up. I walked down the short hallway to the bedroom and opened the closet. My clothes took up maybe a third of the space. The rest was Carla's. Dresses she had bought for dinners I paid for. Shoes that cost more than my work boots. Jackets, bags, stacked boxes. None of it had my name on the receipts. I did not touch any of it. I just stood there looking at how much room I had given up over the years without noticing. Drawers, shelves, parts of myself. Back at the kitchen table, my laptop screen glowed with the lease agreement for the apartment. My name, my signature. Carla's name was nowhere on it. I had signed the lease 5 years ago when we moved in together, after she said her credit was not great and asked if I would mind handling it alone. I had minded. I had just been too stupid or too in love to say it out loud. I called Jefferson Heights Properties. The office manager, Faith Miller, answered on the second ring. "Jefferson Heights, this is Faith." "Faith, this is Leon Bryant in apartment 307, I said. "I need to discuss my lease." "Of course, Mr. Bryant," she said. "What is going on?" "I am planning to vacate early," I said. "What is the process?" I heard her tapping on a keyboard. "You are paid through the end of next month," she said. "If you give 30 days notice, we can start showing it." "Are you relocating for work?" "Something like that," I said. "All right," she replied. "I will email you the notice form. Once you sign it, we will list the unit right away. The rental market is strong right now. It should not take long to fill." "Thank you," I said. My laptop pinged with a new email before we had even hung up. I opened the notice form, signed it digitally, and sent it back. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from Terrell flashed on the screen. "Dude, my phone just died." "What happened?" I typed back. "Payment plan was under my account. You will need to set up your own line." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, as if his frustration was starting and stopping in real time. Finally, he wrote, "Seriously?" "Seriously," I replied. I did not add anything more. Mariah texted next. "My phone is not working," she wrote. "Is the bill past due?" "It is canceled," I replied. "I was the account holder. You will need your own plan now." "We are about to travel," she wrote. "Why would you do this now?" "Because I am done paying for people who do not consider me part of their real family," I typed. Then I deleted that and replaced it with, "You are adults. You can handle your own bills." A minute later, my phone lit up with an incoming call. "Carla." I let it ring 4 times before I answered. "What are you doing?" she said. Her voice was tight, careful, the tone she used when she was angry, but try not to show it in public. "Adjusting expenses," I said. "You cancel the kids' phones," she said. "You cancel the car insurance. Do you have any idea how irresponsible that is? We are about to board a flight." "I canceled the lines and policies that I was paying for," I said. "Terrell and Mariah are grown. They can manage their own responsibilities. You are capable of managing yours." "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "We are at the airport, Leon. We are about to leave for the trip." "Then you should probably sort that out before your flight," I said. There was a stretch of silence on her end. I could hear boarding announcements and rolling luggage wheels in the background. "You are being childish," she finally said. "No," I replied. "I'm being clear. You know what I meant about the trip," she said. "Calvin just wants to bond with his children. It is important for them. That does not mean you are not family." "You told me the kids wanted their biological father," I said. "You told me I was staying home. You did not ask. You told me." "That was clear. I did not mean it like that," she said quickly. "You are overreacting. We can talk about this when I get back." "No," I said. "You made your choice before you ever sent that text. Enjoy your trip." Before she could answer, I hung up. My hands were still steady. My voice had not risen once. I felt calm in a way I had not felt in years. That afternoon, I made 3 more calls. The gym membership I barely remembered signing up for. The meal kit subscription that arrived twice a month and usually went half unused. The car detailing service I had been paying for every month, even though I took the bus to work most days. By the time the sun started sliding behind the buildings outside my window, I had cut 42 monthly expenses down to 11. Only mine. Only what I actually used. I ordered Chinese takeout from the place down the block and ate it at the kitchen table with my laptop open, scrolling through documents. 8 years of being the foundation everyone stepped on while pretending I was part of the structure. Not anymore. My phone stayed mostly quiet that night. A couple of frustrated texts came through, but they were easy to ignore. I had work to do the next day, and not the kind that involved tile kills or forklifts. Bigger work. The kind that did not get undone with an apology or a promise to do better. The kind that closed doors instead of leaving them cracked open. The next morning, I called a law firm a coworker had once mentioned during lunch. "Hayes and McMillan," the receptionist said. "How may I help you?" "I would like to speak with an attorney about my marriage and my legal options," I said. She transferred me to an attorney named Daryl Hayes. His voice was steady, no nonsense. "This is Daryl. What can I do for you?" I explained the situation in under 3 minutes. The text, the trip, the apartment in my name, the bills I've been covering, the way Carla had made a unilateral decision about my place in the family. "Are you married legally?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "We have been married for 6 years. We lived together 3 years before that." "Any children of the marriage?" he asked. "No," I said. "Her kids from before. I have helped raise them for 8 years." "The apartment lease is solely in your name?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "All the utilities as well. I have records of every payment." He paused. I heard paper rustling. "Then you are within your rights to vacate," he said. "If you are planning to separate, I strongly recommend you document everything. Every expense you covered. Every bill. Every transfer. Every text. If this goes to court, you want a clear picture." "I already have it," I said. "Good," he replied. "Call me if she files anything. In the meantime, do not argue or threaten. Just keep records of all communication. Facts are your friend." "Understood," I said. I thanked him and ended the call. 20 minutes later, Faith from Jefferson Heights called back. "Mr. Bryant, I already have someone interested in your apartment," she said. "A young couple relocating from Columbus for work. They want to see it this afternoon if possible." "I will be here," I said. They showed up at 2 o'clock. Clean cut, professional, holding hands as they stepped inside. They walked through the apartment asking practical questions about heating costs, parking, and noise levels. They did not ask why I was leaving. I did not offer any explanation. "We will take it," the husband said as they finished their walkthrough. "Can we move in on the 1st? "That works," Faith confirmed. "We will finalize the paperwork today." That evening, I signed the lease termination, the deposit transfer, and left the forwarding address line blank for now. The apartment felt different after that. Less like a home, more like a hotel room I'd stayed in too long. I started packing that night. I did not have much that was truly mine. Clothes, work gear, my laptop, a few boxes of books, some framed photos from my childhood with my parents and my brother. Most of the furniture had been here when we moved in or had been picked out by Carla. The couch, the dining set, the decorative pieces that made the place look warm on holidays. None of that felt like it belonged to me. By midnight, I had my belongings boxed up. 8 boxes and 2 duffel bags. That was it. 8 years of my life boiled down to what could fit in the back of a pickup truck. While I packed, I thought about the trip they were on, the museums, the ball games Terrell had mentioned, the harbor cruises and city tours in Boston and New York, the hotel rooms with white comforters and complimentary breakfasts. I wondered if Calvin was paying for anything or if Carla assumed I would keep the money flowing even after being told to stay home. I knew the answer. She assumed I would just keep paying. The next day, I drove to a storage facility on the east side of town. Climate-controlled, month to month. The manager slid a contract across the counter, and I signed it without much thought. I loaded everything into the unit except what I would need for the next 2 weeks: clothes, toiletries, my laptop, and a few documents. When I closed the storage unit door and slipped the lock into place, I felt lighter, as if I had set down something heavier than the boxes. On the way back, I stopped at the post office and filed a mail forwarding form. My new address was a post office box in Riverside, Ohio, a small town I had looked up the night before. Affordable rentals, manufacturing jobs, far enough from Cleveland to feel like a different life, close enough that I could still drive back if I needed to for court. Back at the apartment, I sat at the kitchen table one last time. The same table where I had planned a trip I would never take. Where I had scribbled numbers in the margins of a notepad to figure out how to stretch my paycheck whenever something unexpected came up. I opened my bank accounts again. My savings had barely been touched. The joint checking was nearly empty, but that did not matter anymore. I transferred what was left into my personal account and closed the joint one entirely. My phone rang. Carla's name appeared on the screen. I answered. The bank called me. She said, skipping any greeting, "You closed our account." "I closed my account," I said calmly. "You are welcome to open your own." "This is insane," she said. "We are married." "We were," I said. "Past tense. You will get the papers when you are back. Darrell Hayes is handling it." There was a long silence. When she spoke again, her voice sounded different. Shaky. "You are serious," she said. "Completely," I replied. "Where are you going to go?" she asked. "That is not your concern anymore," I said. "You cannot just leave," she said. "You cannot just do this to us." "I can," I said. "And I am. The apartment is already rented to someone else. You have 2 weeks to figure out where you and the kids are staying when you get back." "You are putting us on the street," she said. "Me and the kids. After everything we have built. I am releasing you to your actual family," I said. "Calvin can help. That is what fathers do." I hung up before she could respond. The apartment settled back into silence. I looked around one last time. The kitchen where I had grilled pancakes on school mornings, the living room where I had sat on the couch watching shows I did not care about because it made them happy, the bedroom where I had convinced myself that being taken for granted was the same as being loved. The next morning, I turned in my keys at Jefferson Heights, loaded my boxes into a rented truck, and drove to Riverside. The drive took a few hours. The city skyline gave way to rolling fields, smaller buildings, and quieter streets. By midday, I was unloading my belongings into a small furnished room above a hardware store, 2 blocks from Bishop Manufacturing, the plant where I had lined up a job starting Monday. The room was simple: a full bed, a small dresser, a narrow closet, a table by the window that looked out over Main Street. It was not much, but it was mine. The rent was cheap, and the landlord took cash. 2 weeks passed in near silence. I started at Bishop, learning the layout of the facility, the rhythms of the machines, the names of my coworkers. Nobody knew my history. Nobody knew that I had recently walked away from everything. To them, I was just another new hire who showed up on time, did the work, and kept his head down. The first sign that things were falling apart back in Cleveland came through social media. Terrell posted a photo at the airport with the caption, "Home Sweet Home," followed by a line of confused emojis. I did not like it or comment. I just watched. An hour later, Mariah posted a picture of the old apartment building with a moving truck out front. "Why is there a moving truck at our building?" she wrote. Comments started stacking up beneath it, questions from friends. I closed the app and made myself dinner. Eggs and toast. Simple. Mine. My phone stayed quiet until 8:30 that night. Then it exploded. 17 missed calls. 12 text messages. 3 voicemails. I let them pile up while I watched the local evening news on the small television that came with the room. Road projects. School board meetings. Weather reports. None of it had anything to do with me. Eventually, I opened the messages. The first text was from Carla. "Call me now." The second, "Where are you? The apartment is gone." The third, "This is not funny. Call me back." Terrell's message was shorter. "What the hell, man?" Mariah had sent a long block of text that started with, "I cannot believe you would do this to us," and kept going. I stopped reading after the first line. I deleted the voicemails without listening all the way through. I already knew what they would sound like: panic, anger, accusation, shifting blame in every direction but the right one. At 9:15, my phone lit up with a call from an unfamiliar number. Probably Carla borrowing someone else's phone, thinking I had blocked her. This time I answered. "Where are you?" she demanded. "Somewhere else," I said. "The apartment is gone," she said. "There are strangers living in it. Our things are everywhere. We cannot get in." "Your things," I corrected. "My things are already moved." "You cannot do this," she said, her voice rising. "I did do this," I replied. "Where are we supposed to stay?" she asked. "We have nowhere to go tonight. We just got back from the trip." I took a breath. "That is not my problem anymore," I said. "You wanted Calvin involved. He is the father. Let him figure it out." "He left," she said. I paused. "What?" "He left," she repeated. "He went back to his hotel 2 days before we came back and said he had work. He just disappeared. He has not answered any calls or messages since. His phone goes straight to voicemail." I almost laughed. Almost. "So the man who abandoned his children once did it again," I said. "Shocking." "Do not be cruel," she said. "This is serious. We are at my sister Brenda's right now. She does not have room for us to stay long. We are scrambling. We need help." "Call Calvin," I said. "Tell him you need help." "I told you his phone is off," she said. "Please, Leon. We have nowhere else to turn. Just let us stay in the apartment until we figure something out." "You do not live in that apartment anymore," I said. "The lease is in my name. It has been properly terminated. There is a new lease in place with new tenants. That chapter is over." "You are really going to do this?" she said. "Leave us with nothing." "You have exactly what you had before me," I said. "Calvin, your choices. Each other. I'm just not funding any of it anymore." She started crying then. Not the quiet, broken kind of crying that comes from grief, but the frustrated kind she used when she did not get her way. "Please," she said. "Just talk to me. We can fix this." "There is nothing to fix," I said. "You told me I was not part of your actual family." I agreed. "That is the end of it." "I did not mean it like that," she said. "You meant it exactly like that," I replied, and I hung up. 5 minutes later, Terrell texted. "Mom is losing it," he wrote. "She says you took everything." "I took what was mine," I replied. "Everything else is still there. You just do not live in that apartment anymore." "The apartment is gone," he wrote back. "The apartment was in my name," I said. "I'm not paying rent for people who do not want me around." "Where are we supposed to live?" he asked. "That is between you, your mother, and your father," I replied. "Your biological father." He did not text back after that. Mariah tried calling an hour later. I let it ring out and go to voicemail. She left a message. I did not listen. Around midnight, my phone finally went quiet. I sat in my small room in Riverside with the window open, listening to the town settle in for the night. Distant traffic. A dog barking somewhere. The hum of the streetlight outside. I pictured them crammed into Brenda's small apartment in Cleveland, arguing about whose fault it was, trying to reach Calvin, and getting nothing but silence. I thought about the trip they had taken. The photos they had posted in front of statues, skylines, and historic buildings. Meals at restaurants I had paid for, hotel rooms I had covered, flights purchased with my overtime hours. All of it built on the assumption that I would accept being left behind with a smile. I thought about the text that had started it all. Plans changed. You were staying home. I turned off my phone, plugged in a charge, and went to bed. Tomorrow I had work, a new routine, a new life. 3 weeks into my job at Bishop Manufacturing, I got an email from Daryl. The subject line read, "Legal notice received." Carla had filed a motion to contest the lease termination and demanded that I cover temporary housing costs for her and the kids. Daryl attached the documents and added a brief note. "Weak case. She has no legal standing. I will handle it." I replied with one word. "Thanks." The motion was dismissed 2 days later. The judge's ruling was straightforward. The apartment lease was solely in my name. The termination had followed proper procedure. I had no legal obligation to house adult stepchildren or an estranged spouse. Daryl forwarded me the decision with another note. "She could try again, but she will not win. Keep documenting everything." I saved the email in a folder labeled Legal and went back to work. My new routine settled in quickly. Clock in at 6 o'clock. Clock out at 2:30. Stop at the diner down the street for coffee and sometimes a late lunch. Walk back to my room. Read, watch television, or sit by the window and listen to the sounds of the town. The guys at Bishop are decent. Not overly friendly, not cold. Just ordinary men try to make a living. We talked about sports and the weather during breaks. Nobody asked why I had moved to Riverside. I did not volunteer it. One afternoon in the break room, a coworker named Randy sat across from me with a sandwich and a bottle of water. "You from around here?" he asked. "No," I said. "Moved here about a month ago." "Family here?" he asked. I took a sip of coffee. "Not anymore," I said. He studied my face for a second, then nodded. "Sometimes starting over is the only way to breathe," he said. He did not push for details. I appreciated that more than he knew. About a month after their return from the trip, Terrell sent me a message through social media. I almost did not open it. Curiosity won. "I get why you were mad," it started. "But this is affecting all of us. Mom had to get a job at a call center. Mariah is sleeping on a friend's couch. We had to sell stuff just to cover rent on a cheap place. Calvin will not answer anyone. Can you just help a little?" I read it twice, then closed the app without responding. 2 days later, Mariah tried a different approach. She sent a friend request on another platform. I declined it. Then she somehow found my email. "I never wanted this to happen," she wrote. "I thought having my dad there on the trip would be nice. I did not think you would actually leave. Can we talk, please?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "You are 22. Terrell is 24. You are both adults. Your mother made a choice. You supported it. Now you are dealing with the outcome. That is not my responsibility anymore." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Her reply came quickly. "So that is it. 8 years and you just walk away." "You walked away first," I wrote back. "I just made it official." She did not respond after that. Work kept me busy enough that I did not check my phone as often. The machines were loud, the days steady. There was a comfort in that repetition. My life had shrunk down to something small and manageable, something I could hold in both hands. 6 weeks later, Carla sent a longer message through Daryl's office, then followed it up with a direct email. This one was different. Less anger, more desperation. She wrote about how hard things were, how she had underestimated everything, how Calvin had completely vanished and would not return calls or messages, how Terrell was working 2 jobs just to help with rent, how Mariah had to drop a class at school because she could not afford books. "I made a mistake," she wrote. "I thought having Calvin there would make the kids happy. I did not realize what I was giving up. Can we please just talk about this? I miss you. We all do." I saved the message in the legal folder and did not reply. A week later, Daryl called. "She is trying mediation now," he said. "Wants to negotiate a settlement." "For what?" I asked. "Alimony and temporary support," he said. "She is claiming financial hardship." "How long were we legally married?" I asked. 6 years, he said. "And you paid for everything, according to your records. So what is she entitled to in this state?" I asked. "Very little," he said. "Maybe a small temporary amount, but given the circumstances and the duration, I think we can fight it down to almost nothing. Her decision to exclude you from the trip and her financial dependence on you are both relevant." "Fight it down to nothing," I said. The mediation lasted 30 minutes. Daryl handled it over a video call while I was at work, standing near a shelf of box tiles on my break. When I got back to my room that evening, he had sent a summary. Carla had asked for $2,000 a month. The mediator suggested $500 as a compromise. Daryl countered with zero, citing the judge's previous ruling and my documented financial support over the years. They settled on nothing. Case closed. Daryl's email ended with, "Divorce will be finalized in 60 days. I will forward the paperwork when it is ready." I forwarded his message to my own legal folder and made dinner. Rice, chicken, vegetables, simple food I cooked in a small pan on a single burner. That night, I sat by the window and watched the quiet street below. A few cars passed. The streetlights flickered on as the sun dropped behind the low rooftops. People walked dogs. Someone laughed on the sidewalk. It was ordinary and small and peaceful. I thought about the text that had started everything. The one that had arrived at 6:47 a.m. while I was tying my boots. Plans changed. You're staying home. I thought about the choice Carla had made. The choice Terrell and Mariah had agreed with. The choice Calvin had walked away from as soon as it required effort. I thought about the life I was building now. Small, quiet, mine. No debt I had not chosen. No drama I did not invite. No one taking from me while calling it love. Somewhere back in Cleveland, they were figuring out what life looked like without someone quietly paying for everything. Terrell working 2 jobs. Mariah sleeping on different couches. Carla answering calls at a headset in a loud call center. Calvin was wherever Calvin had always been. Somewhere else, thinking about himself. 2 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Daryl sent me the documents via email. I printed them at the hardware store downstairs, signed them, scanned them, and sent them back. No ceremony, no drama, just paperwork that made official what had already been true for months. That weekend, I drove out to a state park about an hour from Riverside. The road wound through patches of forest and open fields. I parked near a lake and walked one of the trails until I found an empty bench overlooking the water. The lake moved gently in the wind, ripples catching the light. A couple walked past me holding hands. A family unpacked sandwiches at a picnic table in the distance. The smell of pine and damp earth hung in the air. I sat there for a long time, thinking about the man I had been 4 months earlier. The man tying his work boots in a cramped kitchen, worried about clocking in on time and paying off flights for a trip he was excited about. I thought about the apartment I had left behind, the bills I had stopped paying, the family I had finally admitted was never really mine. On the drive back to Riverside, I rolled down the window and let the wind rush in. I did not feel bitter. I did not feel angry. I felt something cleaner than that. I felt free. A month after the divorce documents were finalized, I ran into Randy at the hardware store below my room. He was comparing paint samples, squinting at the small squares under the fluorescent lights. "You settling in all right?" he asked when he saw me. "Yeah," I said. "Better than all right, actually." He studied me for a second and nodded. "You seem different than when you first got here," he said. "Lighter, I guess." "I am," I said. He smiled faintly. "Good," he said. He clapped me on the shoulder and went back to comparing paint colors, debating between 2 almost identical shades. That night, I went back to my room, turned on my laptop, and opened a folder of digital photos from the past 8 years. I clicked through image after image, holidays around the dining table, birthdays with candles, vacations where I stood at the edge of the frame. In most of them, Carla and the kids were front and center, laughing, leaning in toward each other. I was often slightly off to the side, smiling but somehow separate, as if the camera had already understood what I had refused to see. One by one, I deleted the photos. The apartment, the trips, the family dinners where I had smiled for the camera while feeling like an outsider. All of it went into the trash folder and then disappeared for good. I kept one thing, a screenshot of that first text, the one that had arrived at 6:47 a.m. as I tied my boots. Plans changed. You are staying home. The kids want their biological father on the East Coast trip. Calvin is coming instead. I saved that image in a small, hidden folder. Not as a wound, not as something to reopen when I wanted to feel angry, but as a reminder. A reminder not of what I had lost, but of what I had gained when I walked away. I had gained my dignity. I had gained my peace. I had gained a life that finally belonged to me and no one else. 6 months in Riverside turned into a year. I got a small raise at Bishop for reliability and consistent output. I started going to the diner every Friday night, and the waitress eventually learned my order by heart. I bought a used truck that ran well enough and smelled faintly of pine air freshener and old upholstery. I did not rush to date. There were glances sometimes, quiet conversations with people at the diner or the park, but nothing I felt compelled to chase. I had spent 8 years building a foundation for people who saw me as temporary. I was not in a hurry to hand that foundation to anyone else. For the first time in a long time, it was enough to wake up in the morning, lace my boots, pour coffee into my thermos, and know that everything I worked for that day was truly, completely mine. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.